Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Katie, and today we're going to talk about the books I read in February. So it was actually a slower month for me this month. I mean, I still read quite a bit, but it still was slow. I ended up reading, I believe, 11 and a half books, which is actually pretty slow for me. And I DNF'd too, so pretty slow month. Well, I did get sick in the beginning of the month, so that happened, and so I didn't read as much as I usually do. And I ended up watching a lot of TV, which I haven't done in a while, so that was a nice change. So let's go ahead and start with the DNFs because those are quick. We can get them out of the way. So I DNF'd, it was called Fire and Faith by Kristen Jack. I just felt like it was not going to be a book for me. I think I DNF'd it a few chapters in, maybe not even that far in, but it was very theological. It was very, like, I guess, heavier feeling, where like it felt more dry, and I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like this book, so I ended up DNFing that one. And then the other one was The Persistent Road by Tim Bishop, and that one was just too depressing. I was like, it's gonna be a sad book, and I'm okay with sad books, but like there's certain ones that I just don't enjoy it, especially if they deal more with illness versus like wartime or stuff like that. So I DNF'd that one as well. Okay, on to the ones that I actually read. So for star ratings and for like the genres and stuff, I read one low YA, no, two YAs, almost. Two YAs, one adult romance, and then I read 9 Christian fiction. So we'll go ahead and do the mainstream fiction, and then we'll do the Christian fiction. So the first one was Anne of the Island by Ellen Montgomery. I buddy read this one with my friend T. I will link her channel down below. Ooh, matches my shirt. Just realized that. But we are buddy reading the entire collection together, and we were actually supposed to finish the 4th book. I think this is the 3rd book, but we were supposed to finish the 4th book in February, but we didn't. That's okay. We'll just read the next one in March. So anyway, so this Anne of the Island, I only gave it 3.5 stars. I think this one might be one of my least favorite in the series so far. And this one, Anne is 18, and she ends up leaving Green Gables for university. So she moves in with a couple of friends into this like cute little house, and so she's going to college, and then she also meets a different boy, but that relationship doesn't really last long because, I mean, obviously she has Gilbert, right? So yeah, so I think this one finally, during this book, we finally see kind of like Gilbert wants something a little bit more, and Anne's being frustrating and saying no, she only wants to be friends, but we really know the feelings in her thoughts and stuff. So I think in the next book we're going to see maybe a little bit more of Anne and Gilbert. I don't know, because T has started that book, but I haven't yet. So we'll see if there's actually more of Anne and Gilbert. But yeah, Anne of the Island, it was just okay for me. So, but I'm excited to continue the series. And I'm currently reading Hunting Sirens by Mary Meckham. I have not finished it yet, but I do plan on finishing it today because I do have a little bit of free time in the afternoon. So yes, that will be completed. I just haven't finished it yet. But this is a fairy tale swap roles where the mermaid is actually a merman, and then the prince is, well, not really a princess. She's related to royalty, but she is a blacksmith who makes weapons to hunt the sirens. And so I haven't gotten too far in. I think I'm like maybe 10 or 15% in, but I have a feeling I'm going to finish it today because it's going to be a pretty easy read. So I don't know what I'll rate it yet, but yeah, I was going to say if I finished it, I'll put it on the screen, but this video will go out before then. But I will talk about that book, if I remember, in my next month wrap up. I just put it in here because I figured I'd finish it. Okay, and then the next one, which was probably my favorite read of the month, even though I only rated it 4 stars. And that is The Christmas Letters by Jenny Proctor. This was my first Jenny Proctor book. It definitely had me interested in reading more of her books. She is a clean romance author, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the storyline. It was Christmas. We're still reading Christmas books, yes. I think that, no, I got 2 Christmas books on this list. But yes, so it's about this woman who, she is high society in the South, and she doesn't really want to be in high society anymore. She wants to go to college, get a degree, and have the life that she really wants. But she ends up having to volunteer in order to get, like, I forgot what it's called. It's not inheritance, but her money when she hits a certain age or whatever. But so she can have money for college. So she has to volunteer. So she volunteers with the society ladies, and she ends up being tasked to, one job is to work at the hospital, which what she really wants to do, and then the other one is to answer letters from Santa. And so she ends up answering all these kids' letters from Santa, and she ends up getting the box, and she ends up finding a letter that's been stuck in the wrapping paper of the box, like the box is wrapped. So she ends up finding a letter that's, I think it's like over 15 years old or something. And so she's like, how did this get here? Like, this hasn't been answered in so long. So she decides to try to track down this poor little kid that lost his parents and wrote to Santa. And so it's really cute. It has the You've Got Mail feelings, which is really sweet. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Now, why it's my favorite is because I got to buddy read this with my first ever buddy read with an author. That was so much fun. So yes, that was absolutely the most fun I had all month, probably. But yes, I saw a post from Paperbacks, and she said that her friend recommended Jenny Proctor. She never read one, and so she shared a picture of the Christmas letters. And I was like, my friends have been wanting me to read her books too. I haven't yet. So I was like, do you want to buddy read it together? And she said, I don't know what buddy reading is. He's never buddy read before. I was like, oh, it's so much fun, and it's easy. It's laid back. So we did, and we had a lot of fun. So I was able to do that. Yay, it was a lot of fun. So much fun. And something even more cool happened during that. Pepper and I started chatting over on Facebook chat. We had a lot of fun. And then she said that she asked me if I wanted to be one of her alpha readers, which is, he only has five people in the entire world. And so I get the chance. I'm getting emotional here. It's never happened before, especially with like a favorite author. Like, this is such a God-given blessing. I never thought would happen. But I get to read Pepper Basham's books as she writes them. I am like so excited. So right now I can tell you what book it is because it's already out there. But she is currently writing Kizzie's story from the Heart of the Mountain series, and I am reading it. I'm on chapter 3 or 4, I think, and she's written about half the book, I think, roughly. But I am just so thrilled that I get to read it, and yeah, so I'm so excited. And I'm trying really hard not to pick up on spelling mistakes and stuff, because that will be picked up by editors and stuff. But like, I'm just so excited. So I like have to look for like plot holes or oopsies, and it's just, oh, I'm so excited that I get to do that. And it's definitely something that I, a few years ago, never thought would happen, and God has just blessed me so much with that, and I just can't thank him enough, especially for one of my absolute favorite authors and one of my best author friends. It's just so much fun. Anyways, let's go on, because I'm getting emotional, and that was definitely a fun thing. Okay. Anyways, I can't talk. Okay, so on to Christian fiction, now that we've smoothly transitioned over. Okay, so I read a book called A Hill Country Christmas, which was a collection of stories, a short story collection of Christmas stories, and I give it 3 stars. These are all set in Texas, and I give most short story collections 3 stars because usually I have short stories in there that like I would give 4 or 5 stars, and others that I would maybe give like 2 stars to. So kind of a happy medium of 3 stars. There was definitely some that stuck out. It's all set around different times in Texas. So like we have some that are more wartime during the Civil War, and then we have ones that are more like more almost nowadays. I wouldn't say they were too current. I don't think they were too current, but yeah, so they all have kind of like, they're kind of more hopeful stories. I wouldn't say they're super faith-filled, because a few of them were just more hopeful stories, I guess, during the Christmas time. It was okay. It was okay. There is a second collection, but I don't think I'll read it because I didn't enjoy it that much. But yeah, so none of the stories really stuck out to me. I was going to mention a few, but none like really stuck out to me that much. So that's okay. Okay, and then I read a trilogy, which I read a complete trilogy this month. So happy that I actually started and completed a series in 1 month. So very rarely do I do that anymore. But it was called Jurassic Judgment, and it's by Janice Bokoff. Don't know how to pronounce the last name. And the first book is Extinction Island, Deception Island, and Execution Island. Now, I gave book 1 3 stars, book 2 3.5 stars, and book 3 4 stars. That's hard to say. But I did enjoy the series as a whole. It had a Jurassic Park feeling, which if you don't know, it's one of my favorite movies. So I loved the whole Jurassic feel. So in this story, we're following a girl who has been accused of murdering her best friend. And she doesn't remember the crime at all. She wakes up and she finds her friend in the bathtub electrocuted. And she's like, I have no idea what happened. But they accuse her and she is sent to death row. Well, on death row, they actually have a choice between either getting killed right away or being sent to Execution Island. I think that's what it's called, which is filled with live walking dinosaurs. So that's the Jurassic Park element where these genetically mutated dinosaurs that these scientists created are on the island of Costa Rica. It's been taken over by the dinosaurs. They kind of move the people out and they're like, we're just going to have this place for the dinosaurs. So inmates who don't want to be killed right away are sent there to live out the rest of their lives, which could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 3 years. 3 years is the longest anybody's really ever lasted there. So she ends up having to go there, and she's terrified. I mean, there's inmates, there's dinosaurs, and so she is actually a reptile expert. She actually had a job working with crocodiles on the mainland, and so she's like, she's probably one of the most expert at reptiles in the area, but also, I mean, they're dinosaurs and they're genetically mutated, so they're unpredictable pretty much. She ends up going there and they say, there's different groups on the island of people. There's some that are more dangerous than others. You don't want to go with this group. So they're being told like which group was not necessarily safer, but like there's one that was definitely like the bad one. You didn't want to be in it. And that's the one she ends up going into. So yeah, it's all about the story about the dinosaurs and about kind of her connection with the dinosaurs and with the research lab and stuff. She doesn't know her connection yet, but she'll soon find out that. And so there's definitely some dangers going on. For the most part, it is clean. There's no language, there's no love scenes in it, but the physical attraction was a little strong, at least in book 1 and part of book 2. I think that's why book 3 was my favorite, because there really wasn't that much of it. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, with the inmates were like, we want the woman, but thankfully she had a protector. Just saying that. But yeah, so the physical attraction was a little much, but it did not go past kissing. So, but just for me, it was a little much. But yes, okay. Next up is, I have physical copies of the rest of the books. That's good. So I love the title of this book. It's called If a Church Pew Could Talk, and it's by Cindy Carraway Williams. And this was really cute. This was actually set up where it kind of felt like it was a short story collection, but it was all connected. So I like stuff like this more. I gave this one 4 stars because in the beginning we're following a pew actually at a church. We're seeing the thoughts of the pew, and they're having this debate in the church of, are we going to switch the pews to chairs? And the pew's like, what's going to happen to me if they get rid of the pews in the church and switch to chairs? So they're having this argument. And then while they're having it, we kind of flash back in time, and we're following as far back as, 1854. So it's going from 1854 all the way to the current day. So we're following each chapter and how, not necessarily the pew. Well, the pew in the first chapter is like the main, not the main character, but we see how the pew got built and the reasoning behind this particular pew. And then following, we see how the church and the people in the church changed throughout history. And we see the pew kind of experiencing that, and some funny parts where like the pew is worried about gum under his seat, or there's a pregnant lady who has a baby on the pew, and so we see a few instances where like he's actually thinking, but we also get probably more 80% of like the actual story on what goes on in the church, how some people find the Lord, and some people, there's criminals in this book that, they find a little bit of hope in this church and stuff, in this small little church in North Carolina, I think. Yeah, I believe so. But yes, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very, very cute book. So yeah, definitely check it out if you want something just a little bit different. So I think the rest of the books, I think I did do book reviews for, so I will link those down below and I will be brief. So this one is Window of Time by Erin R. Howard. This is a romance time travel book which is set in the future instead. So this woman, Mia, travels into the future through a stained glass window. She ends up falling through a stained glass window at a church at her sister's wedding. And so she ends up traveling in the future and is mistaken for a princess. And so the kingdom that she landed in is part of the US, but now they are a monarchy and separate, kind of feels like separate countries in the US now. And so she ends up going there, and she has to pretend to be a princess because she has nowhere else to be. And so there's a little bit of romance in here. It's very sweet. It's slow burn romance that felt very realistic, which I did really appreciate that, because a lot of romances, sometimes they're not so realistic, but this one felt realistic, and I just loved the timeline. I liked that the country really struggled, and so that's why the prince had to marry the princess, but he's not really a princess, so there's problems there too. But I really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Really, really enjoyed this one. Then I have The Mermaid's Tale by L.E. Richmond. Really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4.5 stars. That close to 5 stars. Really enjoyed it, and it is a series. This one landed on a little bit of a cliffhanger, so if you don't like that, I'd say wait for the rest of the series to come out, but hopefully I can actually remember what happened, because sometimes with cliffhangers, I struggle even more with the cliffhanger. Like if it has a cliffhanger, I struggle with remembering what happened. So, but yes. So this one is a mermaid retelling, but it's told kind of differently, where it feels more like a sequel to The Little Mermaid rather than an actual retelling, which I really did like that, more than just a mermaid retelling. So in this one, we're following Lachlan, and she is a mermaid, but she's a mermaid without a tail. So she has legs. She still lives underwater. She can breathe underwater, but she has legs, and she's always been that way. And so it's very rare, but they are pretty much outcasted, and like nobody really wants to be around them. And so she's like, she doesn't really care about it, which I liked. I mean, she was a strong woman who really was not bothered by that ridicule. But her niece, I believe it's her niece, or it could be her friend's sister, is born with legs. And so she's like, I gotta find a way to break the curse of having legs for the benefit of the little baby, even though she's used to legs. She doesn't really care, but she does want to protect the little girl from being outcasted. So it's a really good story. Definitely a little bit of action going on. But I did really enjoy this one. So I did read this one for the Once Upon a February. This was the only fairy tale retelling that I got in, minus the, whatever it's called. I just said it. Hunting Sirens. So those are the only 2 fairy tales that I actually read this month. But I was going to say, I think I did accomplish all of the prompts, or most of the prompts, because a lot of these were, I was able to add in my regular books besides fairy tale retellings. So that's always good. But yeah, so I really enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun. I read Laura Frantz's newest book, The Seamstress of Acadie, and I love this one. So far, yes, I've only read 2 of her books, but this has been definitely the push to read more by her, because I really love this. And she is such a sweet lady. I've talked to her a few times over on Instagram, but this one was so, so, so good. I love this one. So this one we're following in Canada, and it's during 1754 when the French came over, and they were trying to push out the English were coming over, and trying to push out the French from Canada. And so she ends up on a ship to be deported back to where she came from. And she ends up losing a lot of family on the way, and she ends up being shipwrecked on the shores of Virginia, where she ends up working at a job in a little bookshop, and she also ends up running into a man that she met in Canada who was working for the French. So, a little bit of enemies to lovers romance going on here, but I really enjoyed this one. Her books are definitely more slow burn. They're definitely more, I would say, story driven. Or no, character driven. They're more character driven than story driven, but there was definitely a good story as well. So highly recommend this book. If you haven't tried Laura Frantz out yet, try this one. But the last book that I have is Embers in the London Sky by Sarah Sundin. This was my 6-star read of the month. So I love this one. Definitely more than 5 stars. I just, all of Sarah Sundin's books I have really enjoyed, and I cannot wait again for her next book. I loved it. I've read most of her books, except for I think one standalone, which is actually not a series, but like one character is mentioned from another book in there. And then I haven't read like 2 of her series. She's written a lot of books, but I do love all the books that I've read by her. So Embers in the London Sky. This is about Alida, and Alida is married to this very mean and terrible man, and she wants to escape with her son before the Germans come. Well, the Germans end up coming early, and her husband says, we got to get out of here. And she's like, I planned on going, but not with you. So she ends up leaving with him. And what happens is on the way, they end up running into this huge traffic jam. And so they stop for lunch. He has to fix a tire, even though he doesn't want to stop. And so she ends up kind of playing with her son a little bit. And her son actually is missing all the fingers on his left hand. I think it's his left hand, but I can't remember. But anyways, they end up having an argument, and so she goes into the car with her son, and she's trying to calm him down because he's crying. The dad's like, shut it up. He won't even say son. He says it, because, I mean, unfortunately, he's missing his fingers. So pretty much, he's pretty much disowned, pretty much. So she calms him down, and they both end up falling asleep. Well, she wakes up the next morning, and her son is gone. And she's like, okay, he's in the front seat because her husband's driving. I don't know why he's in the front seat, she says. She looks and he's not there. And so her husband says, I sent our son away with a family that was going to London to be, or wherever it was. I think it was London because they were in a different country at the time. And so, Netherlands, that's what it was. But yeah, so they were going away from the Netherlands, and she's like, where is our son? And he goes, she tries to escape, and he's like, you have to stay with me because I'm the only one who knows where your son is. Well, a bomb ends up exploding, and he is killed. So she has no idea where her son is. And so she is trying hard to find him. And we're also getting this perspective of a man who tries to help her as well. We're following a man named Hugh. Hugh has asthma, but he is a BBC correspondent, and so he's a war correspondent. He's working through all these war stories and stuff, which I really liked his perspective as well, seeing that perspective of a BBC correspondent and all of the stories that he got involved in, while also trying to help Alida find her son. And I just really enjoyed it. I don't know what else to say. It was great, and I loved it. Okay, so those are all the books that I have physically. I did have a few that I talked about physically, but they're already in my on-haul pile downstairs. But yeah, so I would say it was an okay month. I had some ups and I had some downs, but overall it wasn't terrible. So let me know what you enjoyed in February. Normally, I always try to make February a romance month, but it really doesn't turn out that way. I mean, I got a few romances in, but there was definitely it was more of a side plot than the main focus really, but that's okay. I mean, it was fun to read these books and definitely some new favorites overall. But yeah, so definitely an interesting filled month with a good mix. I always like to have a good mix in my reading for the month. I don't like to have just one genre, even though that would be really hard. Ooh, that could be a new punishment for my TBR game. To only read one genre for the whole month, minus review books, because I do have review books, so those don't count, but everything else would have to be one genre. That's interesting. Let me know if that's a good punishment for my TBR game. Anyways, so yeah, let's talk books in the comments. Let me know if you've read any of these. How did you like them? How did you feel? And yeah, I'd love to talk to you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.